when it comes to cold email copywriting, there are actually 3 different parts that you have to think about. This is very similar to other type of content like LinkedIn, like ads, but with every single cold email, you want to have 3 different sections in your copy. So hook, body, and CTA. Think of your cold email as a funnel itself, right? The first thing is the subject line. The goal of the subject line is so that they can open the email. And when they open the email, the first thing they're going to read is the hook. The only purpose of a hook is to get people to be interested in what you're talking about, to get them reeled in so they can keep reading your email and learn more about your offer. And when they get to the body, this is the part where essentially you can show them what you can accomplish, what are they missing out on if they don't work with you. And last but not least, that is going to funnel to a CTA. A CTA is a call to action. So you want to make sure your CTA is clear. You want to straight to the point, because an unclear CTA is going to get the prospect all confused. And even if they want to work with you, they don't know what the next step is, right? So you want to direct the prospect to either booking a meeting on your calendar or sign up to your platform or whatever you want them to do, right? So that's the 3 part of cold email copywriting. So hook, body, and CTA. So when it comes to the hook, essentially you want to talk about the pain point. You want to focus on the pain that they might experience, right? And this is the part where most people would use some kind of personalization. They would use an AI agent to go out there, do some research on the lead so they can personalize the first line accordingly. And that's how you can get their attention. Essentially, you want the hook to just talk about the pain, to kind of read them in and see whether or not they have the pain or if they want to even continue reading the rest of the email. So there's 2 concepts about the hook that I want to talk to you about. The first thing is poke the bear. This is a concept from Josh Braun. Essentially, what you want to do is kind of poke around to see if they experience the pain point, right? So a hook should be a 1 sentence on its own line. Essentially, it's a question asking them whether or not they are experiencing the pain. Something like, hey John, I was doing some research about XYZ, so I assume or I figure you might have this pain point. Question mark. So essentially this line is just poking around to see whether or not they have an issue. And here's a tip. You can literally just have a regular sentence. It doesn't have to be a question. Just throw the question mark at the end and that will become a question. So imagine if it says something like, you had breakfast this morning? You see how depending on my tone, it becoming a question, right? Even though the sentence itself, you had breakfast this morning, is not really a question. Same thing to cold email. If you write something and throw the question at the end, the prospect is going to automatically think that as a question. So keep that in mind. Talk about the pain and throw the question mark at the end. The second concept I want to talk about for the hook is a concept called why you, why now, right? So when you reach out to people in cold email, the first line of the sentence has to answer that question. Why are you reaching out to them and why now? So remember, when you go out there and use different AI agents to find different intents, different data point, why do you think they have a problem? Make sure you talk about that in the hook. Maybe you see something and that's why you figure they might have that problem. So that's the hook. Now, once the prospect find the problem relevant, they will continue reading your email. And essentially, this is the body. The body is when you test different outcome and guarantee and whatever you might have, right? Trial, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to testing a new offer, I'm going to go to my whiteboard now. There's a concept that I always follow when I try to help my client crack the campaign. There's really no name for it, but I usually call it the offer ladder, the positioning ladder, whatever it might be. So this is essentially how it should look like. So imagine you have a pyramid and essentially the more up you go, the less control that you will have. What does that mean? Now, let's take my agency as an example, right? We help other companies do cold email. We help them go to market and help them find product market fit. Now, that's what we do. We do cold email. So let's put this right here, cold email. When you try to come up with an offer, you don't want to talk about cold email, right? You want to talk about the outcome. You want to talk about what cold email can actually help the prospect accomplish. So let's start with the most obvious thing, right? So cold email can help you get more reach, right? Because you can scale cold email indefinitely and you can send a bunch of cold email. You can reach out to your entire target audience, right? Now, what does reach actually get you? Reach will get you leads, right? Because when you reach out to a bunch of people, some people might be interested in your product or service. And what does lead get you? Leads will get you clients, right? Because those leads will eventually convert into your actual paying customer. Your clients is going to get you more revenue, right? And your revenue is going to help you get better valuation, whatever it might be, right? So as you can see right here, it starts from reach to leads to clients, revenue, valuation. But here's the thing, just because you have some leads doesn't mean they will convert into clients. Just because you got clients doesn't mean you will be profitable. And just because you got some revenue coming in, you're profitable, doesn't mean that your valuation will be high, right? That because there's a lot of things involved with the company valuation. So yeah, as you can see right here, These are essentially what we call angles. So when you send cold email, you want to test all these angles to see which one resonate with your target audience. Why? Because let's say you're reaching out to a CEO, they might care most about more clients, they might care most about valuations. If you reach out to your CMO, for example, they might care more about reach, they might care more about leads, right? Now, let's say you're reaching out to your CEO that are doing below $1 million a year in ARR. They might care more about getting more clients, they might care more about getting more revenue. But let's say you're reaching out to your CEO that are doing somewhere between, $10 million to $100 million. They would care most about valuation, right? So different stages of business, different people that you're reaching out to, they have a different set of pain point, they have different things that they care about. So that's the reason why you just have to test. You have to test with different role title, you have to test with different company stage, different industry, and then for all those, you have to test with different value proposition, right? Different angle, things right here, right? And once you land on something, that is your key signal to essentially scale up that particular angle, right? So this is the body, how you should map it. Just sit down and map the pyramid for your product or your service to see what you should test and what you should be focusing on. All right, so that's the body. Now, CTA, pretty straightforward. You want to end your email with a call to action, right? And a tip for this is you want to make it really soft, right? Obviously, most of the time, the goal is you want to push for a meeting, but you don't want to ask somebody for a meeting directly, right? One way that I like to think about it is like dating, right? Now imagine you go to your bar and you meet a girl and you're having a good time, you're talking to her throughout the night, and all of a sudden you're just like, hey, wanna go home with me? That just kind of ruined the whole thing, right? Now, let's say you want to make it a little bit more soft and you want to say something like, hey, look, like I got this really cool car collection at home, you want to go check it out with me, right? You're essentially implying that you want to take her back home, but you're just saying it differently, right? It doesn't make it too, creepy. So with cold email, you want to follow the same principle, right? You want to book a meeting, but you don't want to say something like, hey, how about let's meet? How about let's, talk about it on Zoom next week, right? You don't want to say something like that. You want to be soft and say something like, hey, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Hey, if this is relevant, I would love to see if it makes sense for your company, right? Essentially, you are still asking for a meeting, but you make it soft and you are not, too straightforward with what you want to do. So essentially, you're not too direct pushing for a meeting right away because that can come off as pretty pushy and people just don't like to be sold to. All right, so let's talk about copywriting framework because there are a lot of copywriting style that people do, right? So my recommendation is you just need to go out there and find different framework because there's a saying that you don't know what a good copy looks like until you see a good copy. But when in doubt, there is a framework that I personally developed called TFKD. Think, Feel, Know, Do. So essentially, it's a 4-sentence cold email, each on its own line. The first sentence makes the prospect think about the problem. The second sentence makes the prospect feel about the problem. The third sentence explaining what they could do to solve the problem. And last but not least, the fourth sentence is a CTA. You make sure you want a client know what to do next, right? So here's an example. Hey Michael, since you're managing quite a few clients, I'm curious if anyone's asked about setting up a trust. This was quite difficult to do in the past with lawyers charging a few $1,000 and taking weeks to finish. Our startup XYZ can help our clients set up trust in a minute, yada yada yada. We've partnered with case studies to make trust creation inexpensive and simple. Let me know if you're curious and I can set up a discount code for your client. Essentially, that is the copywriting pillar. Get the structure right, get the copy right, use the right agent to help you do research and personalize it at scale with AI. And you're essentially sending emails that actually read like a person who wrote them. Real quick, I want to send you a little gift before you go. I'm Wesley, I run SciMay, and we help B2B teams book meetings with Code Outbound. So if this was helpful, join the Code Academy and grab our entire Outbound playbook for free. No catch. Plus, you get access to me directly to look over your campaigns and exclusive discounts on tools, databases, and a bunch more. Links in the description. And if you want us to run your outbound campaign, book a call with my team. The link's down there too. Don't forget to subscribe. Just start sending, and I'll see you in the next one.